You buy a $400,000 Ferrari, you drive it into a cornfield, and it proceeds to burn to the ground on camera.
Guys, we f***ed up.
But the state still wants their $30,000 in sales tax. So what do? They send 6 police officers to your door, arrest you on a felony indictment, all because you didn't pay the state sales tax. This is exactly the situation that Cody Detweiler, also known as WhistlinDiesel, is in. Today, we're gonna walk through this case and we're gonna look at 4 elements. Number 1, what really happened? Number 2, what is the state really saying? Number 3, did Cody actually do anything wrong? And number 4, if you're buying a supercar, what do you need to do to make sure that you don't end up in handcuffs? Let's rewind the clock back to 2023, when Cody Detweiler, WhistlinDiesel, bought his 2020 Ferrari F8, roughly a $400,000 car. But he didn't buy it to park it in his garage, wax it, make it look nice. Rather, and he said this on his channel, he bought it to destroy it. And the reality is, he does this with a ton of different vehicles. So this is not out of the norm for Cody. So this is exactly what Cody does. He proceeds to drive his Ferrari into a cornfield. It accidentally lights on fire, and $400,000 of Italian engineering proceeds to turn into a literal viral bonfire. From YouTubers' perspective, this is amazing. Your $400,000 Ferrari that you bought to test for durability lights on fire with all the cameras rolling. But we all think that this story was gonna stop here. A viral YouTube video from somebody who creates content around durability of vehicles. This is where we dive into the tax story, where it started in 2023, but it didn't actually come to fruition until 2025. So let's dive into the tax element of this story. We're gonna call this the Montana move. It's what many people do with luxury vehicles to try to navigate avoiding sales tax on expensive supercars. For Cody, he has an entity that's set up in the state of Montana. In the state of Montana, there is no sales tax. So what that means is that if you buy a vehicle and you register it to that entity in Montana, you got those nice Montana plates on your car, what's gonna end up happening is that you are not gonna have to pay any sales tax, even if you're a resident of another state. And for Cody, he's a resident of Tennessee. Traditionally, Tennessee does not have any state income tax, but one of the ways that they quote unquote get you is that they have a high sales tax rate. So for this specific vehicle, this Ferrari, he would have owed about $30,000 in sales tax. The argument here is that it was registered in Montana to a business entity, which makes a lot of sense, right? Cody bought this vehicle to be in videos, to be in content. He didn't buy this for personal use. He also rarely spent any time in Tennessee with this vehicle. And matter of fact, the vehicle itself actually burned down in the state of Texas. So when we tie all those pieces together, there's a couple of key points that I want you guys to hear from a tax perspective. Number 1 is, if you're buying a vehicle, wherever you register the vehicle, that is where you're going to pay sales tax. So if you register in Montana, you're not going to pay any sales tax. If you register in Tennessee, you're going to pay sales tax. If you registered in Missouri, where I live, you're going to pay sales tax. In the state of Texas, going to pay sales tax. These are all things that you need to be considering if you're looking to buy a supercar or any car in particular. So let's fast forward to 2025. November of 2025, just recently, what ends up happening is 6 officers show up to his house and they arrest him on felony tax evasion. Keep in mind, this is all over $30,000. And if you watch the video, what you'll notice is that Cody is utterly confused. Matter of fact, he actually thinks it's a joke and he thinks that he's being pranked. But he follows the rules, puts his hand behind the back, and then walks himself all the way up his driveway, gets in the police vehicle, and gets booked on felony tax evasion. So if you're still with me, that was point number 1, the story. What happened? Now, what is the state really trying to do? Well, this is an opinion. And my opinion is that the state is seeing this as an amazing opportunity to create awareness around sales tax, right? Tennessee has a lot of high earners. It also has a lot of ultra high net worth families in it. And the reality is that there are a lot of people utilizing this tax loophole to avoid paying sales tax. And clearly the state of Tennessee is very concerned about this tax loophole that many of its residents are taking advantage of, right? If we think about this situation, anybody can start a business in a state that does not have sales tax. They can register their vehicles there and they can go through this tax loophole. But the reality is it really needs to be a business vehicle. It needs to be used for that entity, and that needs to be a legitimate business in that state. And if I had to guess, the state of Tennessee thinks that there's many people that are registering vehicles in Montana and then coming back and living their full-time life in Tennessee and never paying $1 in sales tax. That's what the state is trying to get at in this felony tax evasion and specifically going after WhistlinDiesel. They think that this is a way for them to get exposure to people trying to avoid this tax loophole and frankly, probably trying to scare people into registering their vehicles in Tennessee and paying sales tax. Now, that's just my opinion. The state of Tennessee, we'll see how that actually shakes out. Now, number 3, what is Cody really trying to do? Well, when we think about Cody Detweiler, again, he's a YouTuber, big name, and when we think about his situation, his whole goal is that he is trying to promote durability of vehicles. And in this video, he is trying to promote his business, which is his YouTube channel, by driving a Ferrari through cornfields, driving it up hills, driving it across a mountain, crazy stuff. Unfortunately, it lights on fire and burns to the ground. And if you watch one of his videos, he actually has it on his desk. It's a box of bolts, which is pretty hilarious to me. But when I think about Cody's situation, personally, I think it's really reasonable what likely happened, which is he has a Montana entity that he is running his business from, which is very normal, even if you are a resident of the state of Tennessee, because it's very clear that he travels a lot. He rarely is actually in the state of Tennessee. He has land in Montana. And so I think he's trying to take advantage of a very real loophole here that can be utilized, where he's registering a very expensive vehicle in a state that he has an entity in that's for a business purpose, and he's avoiding sales tax. That is a real loophole that you can take advantage of. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. Does not mean that if you were a resident of Tennessee, Texas, Missouri, you can just set up an LLC, register it in the name of the LLC, and you are free and clear of not paying any sales tax. That is not what I'm saying. The code is pretty black and white in this instance. And in my mind, Cody is probably following it to a T based on the videos that I've seen him putting out. But if you're in this situation, what should you do? That brings us to point 4. So if you're a business owner, there's really 2 things that you need to be taking away from this video. Number 1 is that any tax planning that you're doing, you should assume that it's going to be scrutinized and that you're going to have to defend it. The reality is that the tax code's pretty black and white. If anybody tells you out there on the internet that there's a way for you not to pay any taxes, that's just fake news. There's no silver bullets when it comes to taxes. There's certainly tax strategies where we can reduce taxes. We can even eliminate taxes with different tax strategies, but there's no silver bullet. There's no magic secret sauce. So what I would encourage you is that really think about your tax plan and your tax strategy and understand what level of risk am I taking on with each of these tax strategies. Is it very black and white? Example of black and white is if I put money into a 401k, I'm going to get a tax deferral. The government is never going to come out after you when it comes to that. Now let's go on the other side of the spectrum and turn the dial up a little bit. Let's say you want to take bonus depreciation on a rental property and you want to classify yourself as a real estate professional. This is something that can get very much into the gray because you need to be spending over 50% of your time, 750 hours, all these different things. But if you have a full-time job, that's going to be really hard for you to say you're spending more time on real estate than you were in your full-time job. That's it. Just an easy example that you need to be thinking about. And so what I would encourage you is look at all the tax strategies that you're implementing and just make sure you understand, is this a level 1 from a risk perspective, or is this a level 10 from a risk perspective? And make sure you understand those risks. The second piece is where we should be titling our vehicles. This is sales tax, exactly what we've been talking about in this entire video. And when I think about sales tax, there's really one of 2 options. Number 1 is that the car is owned by an entity and you need to title the car in the name of that entity in the state that it is registered. So if you have a Montana entity, you can title it in the state of Montana as long as you're doing business in Montana. You cannot just spin up a Montana LLC, go title your car in Montana and just assume you're going to avoid no sales tax. Expect to be in handcuffs or potentially get a letter from the IRS. And the second piece is that if the car is bought in your individual name, you're going to need to register it in the state that you're a resident of. And it's that simple. A lot of people try to overcomplicate this. And like anything in tax planning, there are going to be tax loopholes, but you need to understand the risks, the rewards, and if the juice is really worth the squeeze. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel below. We're going to be covering more and more topics and stories just like this.